You know what must be a great feeling? Being a gacha fan and finally seeing your favorite gacha game getting a pretty big budget game that shows your characters in full 3D with beautiful graphics and environments, something most anime games can only dream of nowadays. All without the gacha system even, so people who get goosebumps and break out in a cold sweat by just the sheer mention of that word can also have fun with the game. Getting the money from all those whales pays off when they invest it into even more games instead of filling the pockets of the CEO. Granblue fans finally got this with an actual fun game, and one of the most important questions for you is probably gonna be, is this worth it if you're not even a fan of the franchise already? As someone who has played the MOBA game once for like a week, which means I have no real connection to it except for really enjoying most of the fan art, I can tell you that yes, if you love flashy action RPGs. But let me start with its weakest point. The story is extremely tropey and cliché, which isn't always a bad thing, but it also won't really make you go wow. The wow factor mostly comes from the actual gameplay and the cool boss battles and other moments you would experience through it. Sometimes I just sat and said, yep, this is what's gonna happen next, and the things I said came true, because it's just that predictable. Playing it safe isn't always a bad thing, but it's hard to really make you feel things when it feels like you have seen this kind of story over and over without a single original thought behind it. The characters felt pretty normal. I didn't really forge a deep connection with them, but it's also because of how the game is structured. It feels like everything in the game takes place in a single day and just pushes onto the next big thing after the next big thing without giving the story any moments to really breathe in and have an actual meaningful conversation while walking from a town to another town, for example, how it's done in other JRPGs. But obviously for people who have played the MOBA game for years before this game, it must be a great feeling to finally see them on the big screen and see their little interactions in full 3D and having the full context on how they all met. While you can totally enjoy and play the story without any knowledge of the original story, I can see how some people may think it's a bad thing because you're part of an established crew who all know each other, unlike in most JRPGs where you start with no crew at all and then meet some people who join your cause and you all grow together as a team because you hang out so much. So if you want to know the full context of it, you better dive into the gacha hell, but I always hear that Granblue is also really generous when it comes to not having to spend money, but in the end, gacha is still gacha. There's also little Fate episodes that give the characters more backstory and tell you more about their little quirks and personality, and you even get a little boost from it, like hey, here's 20 more HP for you for reading through a bunch of text, with some quests added here and there too sometimes. It's also not a totally classic JRPG that some may have expected, but goes more into a Monster Hunter kind of a direction, where you pick up a quest and then kill a specific amount of enemies or kill a huge monster, while the main story is also really linear and won't give you too much to explore. But exploration does exist in the bigger areas of the game, but even then, they're quite linear. There's treasure chests to be found sometimes or other items when you go into other little paths, but it's pretty much almost always a hallway except for a few big open sections. Sometimes I just wish these beautiful locations would let me explore more, but it would be kinda mean to blame the game for something I wanted if it's not what the game wanted. It's really just made me want to have a Granblue Fantasy JRPG that is more structured like a classic JRPG with tons of locations to explore and cities to rest at instead of the Monster Hunter approach where it's more about the grind after you beat the story and just do the quest and do this quest and do that quest and beat the big guy, beat that big guy, this big guy, you know, that kind of approach. Another problem with the story is that it kind of stretches a bit too much like bubblegum towards the end. I needed like 8 hours to beat it on hard and the last 25% of the game played like a drag on these nuts. Sorry, because it just refights. Sometimes having it a bit shorter is better than letting it drag on and on and on. And sadly at times it has the problem where the characters just do not shut up and most of the dialogue feels a bit unneeded. Yes, I did see that there's a pack of wolves right in front of me. Thanks for telling me that random guy whose name I don't even remember because I never once used him, because why would I ever let a male character into my party? Everyone knows that playing with cute characters is the way to go. Cuteness trumps all. Or they also really love to just lord them in the middle of a big fight when you just want to enjoy the soundtrack and you're already focused on not trying to get hit. At least you don't have that really happen when you get into the meat of the game, which is after you finish the story and you can finally grind. Then most characters, you know, they don't suddenly lord them on you what they think about, wow, what's happening here in the story, wow, I think I'm gonna talk about this for 10 minutes while the fight goes on, and you just really want to enjoy the beautiful soundtrack, but you can't because they keep talking, even though the game has amazing voice actors, and I played in Japanese because I'm a weeb, and they have the whole armada of big budget voice actresses. You will probably realize every single voice actor in the whole game, and you go like, oh, that's the guy from Bakemonogatari, and that's the girl from Spy X Family, your Forger. The voice actors from her. And it makes you think like, wow, I recognize all of them. Or maybe you won't when you play it in English. You can get through the main story by pretty much just upgrading your weapons here and there and unlocking some passive and active skills like more health, more attack damage, blah blah, the typical skill tree stuff. I played it on hard and at no point I ever thought, heck, this is too hard or spongy for me. I think it even would have been too boring on normal, so I would recommend playing it on hard. I didn't even do any quests that weren't part of the main story and ended up being like 10 levels behind the enemies, which didn't really matter because it didn't feel like it. And if you get your ass kicked, you can just lower it anyways at any point in the game. So I would recommend it on hard, but maybe you're scared. Don't be scared. I'm here for you. I have seen people comparing it to Monster Hunter, but it doesn't really feel like it at all when you actually get to play it. Sure, you fight big baddies and have a quest counter where you pick up quests and then go to an area to do your little quest, but that's kinda all. It never gave me that Monster Hunter feeling that you get when you play Monster Hunter. The big fights feel more like having an action version of raids in Final Fantasy XIV or similar MMOs, where there are a lot of indicators on the ground to show you not to stand in there. But the monsters also have normal attacks that don't really have any indicators except for sometimes turning red, so you know a rather strong attack is coming. It's all about watching the animations and figuring it out to dodge it easily, which isn't completely needed even on hard difficulty, but it will be needed in the even higher difficulties you unlock after beating the story, because on Maniac or Proud, everything will basically one-shot you. But you can't get caught in this game. Dying isn't the end of the world, because even if you die, you still get many chances to get revived, because you have a meter running down, but by spamming a button you can get up on your own feet again, and when one of your mates also helps you out, it gets you up even faster, or just use a revive potion. The meter doesn't reset with each death though, so every time you die you have less and less time to get up again, which will eventually lead to your ultimate demise. And you don't want to die. Nobody wants to. Hopefully. Kinda. Please don't. So the gameplay itself is fairly simple. You have two buttons to attack with, but many characters have different kind of attacks. You got guns, swords, whips, etc. and they do kinda play differently with their ranges and also how fast they can attack. You got different combos, so you can for example spam the X button as much as you want, so your Y button turns into a combo finisher attack that you gotta press to end your current combo with to unleash more damage. But then you also got like the XXY combos and XXXXY combos and all that, the typical kind of system you would expect from an action RPG. You can buy new characters eventually for your party with crewmate cards. I hate the word crewmate nowadays, I can't take it seriously anymore, thanks to a little tiny indie game that conquered the world a bunch of years ago, and I would not name that game. And you get those after big story bits or by completing certain tasks. The sad thing about those is that they're not really a part of the main story, so if you got them in the party, they never actually show up in the cutscenes, but they do have dialogue too about the story here and there if you use them in the main story. Another word that starts with M like main story? Magical. It wouldn't be a magical game without some magic skills. You can equip 4 skills with each character and find the ones you love the most, or what your party needs when you want to become the heal slot in your friends group. Some characters are better needed for the supporting role with buffs and heals, while others are just there to bash the enemies right in their heads. So while the overall depth of the gameplay is not extremely deep, because it will most likely feel like you're just spamming your buttons without much thought, in comparison to that, you got the actual depth in the way you want to choose your characters, weapons and skills, and how you set up your whole party, or how you want to be part of the party of your friends to really beat those big baddies in the fastest time possible, so you can min-max it, but it's not needed for the main story, and you can kinda basically button smash your way through the game, but not on the higher difficulties. Because you have to pay attention way more. You can't just spam, because then you will get hit, because you can't dodge while you're in that animation, but sometimes you also dodge too much. The thing is, with the dodge roll, it has a little bit of a delayed recovery. In other games you can roll, but here if you use it like 2 times in a row, your character stays on the ground for like a second and you're very vulnerable. The game is extremely flashy. People who hate having so much random stuff on the screen will probably hate it, because every single attack comes with so many colors and effects that sometimes you won't really be able to see what is actually going on here. I just sat there at points and was like, wow, I can't see anything, but it looks pretty, even if I might got hit because I couldn't really understand what just happened or what I should have paid attention to. The camera also sometimes really doesn't like you, but it's a feast on your eyes, so who cares? And I am also used to not being liked, so not a problem for me either. So if the camera doesn't like me, you don't have to like me either. Or the other way around. But the camera can get a little bit frustrating when it gets stuck on the bigger enemies. While you don't really need to engage with the depth that the game offers in the main story, you will actually get your ass kicked when you try to do the same with the post-game and endgame content, where it's extremely important to actually try to min-max your stuff, and there's so many things to look out for. Making sure to uncap your weapons, making sure to maybe use weapons with different elements, because the game has those too. You know, the typical water weapon deals more damage to fire enemies kind of stuff. Making sure to use the right sigils, which are little passive skills like doing more damage, having more health, etc. Then also make sure to level those up, maybe forge some better weapons, unlock everything in the skill tree, and that will become fairly grindy, since you obviously need to get skill points for the skill tree, also materials to upgrade weapons with. So you gotta check what rewards you get from a certain quest to then do the quest a few times to get the right upgrade materials from it. Grind, grind, grind. That's exactly what most people want to have in those games, right? If you're just looking for a game you play through and then maybe never touch it again, I wouldn't really recommend it, at least not at full price, and would tell you to rather wait for a sale, since it doesn't have that much content if you don't enjoy this kind of endgame where you upgrade and grind the same fights a little bit here, a little bit there. Soundtrack wise, it's just like, damn, and damn. When you find the biggest monster and some of these tracks start playing while you dodge flashy attack after attack and hit some cool attacks yourself, it makes you feel like an actual god or goddess. It's exactly the kind of music you would expect, but it doesn't make it any worse. You know, these songs will have an epic choir, a wacky guitar with drums going crazy, and the final boss theme is peak, just total peak. It's the kind of hype song where you watch an anime and you wonder, hey, why isn't the opening normally playing? And then eventually the opening comes up during a big fight and it makes you think like, wow, wowie, wow, wow. Wowzers, wowie zowie. That's the kind of reaction I had to the final boss song. Wouldn't expect anything else when Nobuo Uematsu is on your team for the soundtrack, you know, the person who basically made Final Fantasy what it is today, or more like what it was, sadly. Final Fantasy 16 wishes it could reach the peaks of this game, but you know, I don't want to put anything down to hype something else up, even though I just did that, so ignore that. I played it on PC and I can't really say much about performance because it just ran really well. No crashes, only a few FPS drops here and there when the action went too crazy, but my PC is also not the best and I streamed doing it too, which sucked out even more power out of my poor little PC. But it almost has no options at all. You can either put it on Ultra or on Custom, and most of these settings only have two options. Normally you're used to stuff like putting shadows on Extreme, Normal, Low, turn them off completely, but here it's just always Ultra or Normal. So when I went into these settings before really starting the game, I was a bit scared. It will run like poop for me as a person that does not have a higher range PC and normally tries to squeeze these settings to fit my PC well. I can only say the thing that most people hate to read when they Google a problem and find an old forum thread that was closed without a real solution, with a bunch of people just saying, hey, well, it runs on my machine. I'm not a big tech channel. I only have one PC. I can't benchmark. For me it went. That's all I can say. Sorry. I think it crashed for some people. If possible, buy PlayStation 5 version. I have no idea. Play where your friends are. Even though I read that matchmaking is region locked, so that's hopefully getting fixed one day. I don't have friends to play it with, so it's not a problem for me either. I'm gonna cry now. I enjoyed and still will enjoy my time with the game, but for people who expected a real JRPG, you're gonna be a bit disappointed, I think. And it's also not a real Monster Hunter clone, which I always read. It's a flashy spectacle that doesn't require too much thought into it when you just want to bash things into their heads, unless you really get into the high difficulties. For the first game in the series, it's a great beginning, and it also kind of was stuck in development hell for a while, which makes it even better that they managed to put out a fairly great game like this. If you're the kind of person who only plays through the main story once, like I already said, and you know, you don't want to grind, wait for a sale, but if you enjoy grinding a game out for all the content it has, then you should check it out. Have a good day, a great day, a good night, a beautiful morning, or whatever time it is for you right now, while I now go enjoy some beautiful Granblue Fantasy art, the pure and wholesome kind, not the usual kind of fan art you would expect when you see some of these characters. But I have to somehow say something weird because that's just how I am sometimes, and I would really love to lick Fairy's armpits. There we go.